You're listening to an Accent Productions podcast.
All right, Rachel. PG-13. PG-13.
PG. Rachel, PG.
What?
We're rolling.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Moody&D Gone Rogue. I'm your host, Rachel Sanders, and I will let the rest of the table introduce themselves.
My name is Christian Majewski, also known as Klaus.
My name is Rachel McKelvey, or Prof. Mac, and I play Audra.
And I'm Reese Amstutz, your humble dungeon master, who unfortunately is not in control of what's happening anymore.
Sorry. Not really.
Grr.
Welcome to Moody&D, where we sit down and ask questions about certain episodes of Moody&D. We have different characters and guests, and we get to break down the theology, strategy, and just thoughts behind each character. So we're going to roll a d20 to see who can go first.
Okay.
And today we're discussing episodes
5 through 8.
5 and 6.
5 and
through
6.
Okay, roll initiative.
Oh, shoot. 7.
9.
Nat 20!
Dang it. I rolled a nat 20 earlier. I was
16.
wasting all my good rolls. I had like 17s and 18s. Oh, there's a 19.
So
16.
I saw a guy today on YouTube try to roll 20 1,000 nat 20s.
Oh, yeah. One-shot questions.
Yep. He rolled 1,000 nat ones when he was at like 800 nat 20s.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
hilarious. Sorry. Go ahead, Reese.
Anyway, first question. This one is kind of for both of you. I didn't have like many super deep questions for this episode because it was a lot of dungeon crawl.
Mhm.
But when I started describing the shadows, there was a point where like Audra got super freaked out by some magical effect that I suppose I can disclose now. It was a confusion spell.
Okay.
But Audra got like crazy freaked out by these things. Where did you think I was going with the shadows? Like before you knew that it was a confusion spell, what were you guys thinking I was doing? Because like some of you guys were going ballistic.
I mean, I didn't think it was anything more than a confusion spell.
Okay.
Oh, I thought they were going to attack us. But which is why I eventually pulled the rapier out. I was ready to fight.
By like the second or third time when she didn't take damage from them, I kind of realized that it was just going to be like a confusion spell. That's also why Klaus kind of just didn't care.
Yeah, it was like, whatever.
Yeah, you really did. I was realistic.
Nope.
I was like, wow.
You were like,
There's
dang, hanging me out to dry here.
No love lost.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah, that's
No.
Who rolled next highest?
I had a 9.
I had a 7.
16.
No.
You had a 16?
Yep.
Shoot, okay.
Haha. This one's for Audra.
No.
Your character just seems to be a very mischievous teenager. Well, she kind of admits that. During the episode, did your character find herself trying to overthink her strategy to make up for her age/maturity with Klaus and Ima?
Shoot.
Whoa.
Diving right in.
Coming
I
to the
know,
table
right?
with great questions.
That is a
Better
good
than
question. I think where Audra was, especially in that episode, she thinks she's got it all together because I think we talked about for the temple, she's like one of the smarter ones. And so
Yeah.
this starting in this episode is where she's kind of starting to feel like, oh, maybe I don't know a ton, but she's still kind of holding on to that vibrato. So I think right now it's still purely confidence and what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like stupidity.
Arrogance?
Arrogance. There we go. Yeah. So far, she thinks she's the most mature one of the group.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How does she maintain that thought with like Ima standing there? Because Ima might not be intellectually mature, but he still has. I mean, it's just interesting. Like, what was Audra assessing about the other party members that led her to that thought?
I think with her history with Ima, and really all of the lizard folk of being able to kind of manipulate her way into situations or like charm her way into, like she was there when Ima was created and like she's claimed him as her best friend. And so while he may be the protector, she still sees herself as like pulling the string. Like I can get Ima to do whatever I want him to do. So really I'm the most powerful person, whether that's true or not. Yeah. So I think that, and then Klaus is still kind of that weird stranger.
Yeah.
Like she was able to take the rings from him. So I think she just thinks like, oh, I'm super sneaky and super smart and
Yeah.
haven't been caught yet, and so clearly all these people are beneath me.
Interesting.
Not in like a Klaus way,
So
but just
really,
like
These people are all stupid. I can get exactly what I want
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I want.
yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of driving me to the point. What is really the difference between Klaus and Adra?
At the moment,
At that
I
moment,
think
yeah.
she thinks there's a lot of difference, but
Yeah.
I think her arrogance is more internal.
Mm-hmm.
So because most of it is done through manipulation
Mm-hmm.
in like a slick way.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, oh no, I'm a good person, and
Mm-hmm.
I like, of course I think everyone's equal, but in her mind she's like, oh my gosh, all these people are stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So from an external position, how does that work for you? Like recognizing that she has like a mini superiority complex, like.
We talked about this with him last time.
Man, that is a great question. I don't know. I think part of it is there's a level of outworking even of my own. Like I grew up very much with a superiority complex.
Okay.
So there's a level of playing that out. And then I think it's been interesting. How much are we allowed to talk about like future episodes?
You can talk about them. This episode's going to come out after every single episode we record this semester is aired.
Okay, cool,
So-
cool. Yeah, so I think part of it is like as things start getting more and more precarious, and especially as like a level 2 rogue, she has no powers, no abilities really, other than
You can run
hiding.
really fast.
Right, run really
you can
fast and hide. But it's like if your weapons miss, you're kind of useless. There's no magic, there's no healing capabilities. And then is episode 7 where we use the last herb?
Mm-hmm.
7
Yeah,
or
I think
8.
so.
So then realizing, oh, there's A, no way to get back, and B, no way to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
I think kind of the reality of being superior is not going to help anything in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's been fun to walk through Audra's character of like, once Ima dies and Klaus's whole like, you know nothing, you haven't explored the world, you know nothing of how the world works,
Yeah.
into like where we go into arc 2 is like a lot of Audra kind of questioning her own thoughts of like what she thought about people. And
Yeah.
so, which, you know, you get there. I grew up as like a pastor's kid and able to like, I was pretty smart / manipulative. Like I almost caused a church split when I was 8. So
What?
like,
This is a story for later.
yeah.
Or right now.
I overheard something and like in my overconfidence shared it with the wrong people without realizing there was tension. And so there were a lot of hurt feelings and I had no idea. I was 8, but
Right,
like,
yeah, you were 8.
but I also
course.
was like, I know something you don't know.
I know
And-
something you don't. I know something you will never know. From TikTok, you don't know
Nope,
that sound?
Nope.
Nope.
I haven't been on TikTok this whole semester,
Not a
so
TikTok
I'm
person.
sorry. Sorry, Rach.
So hurt right now.
I'm sorry. But anyways, all that to say, like, I think to go back, this is a very long answer to your question. Externally, I think Audra is like that working out of even bits of what I had to experience in my own life of
Yeah.
once you kind of step outside of yourself and realize, oh, I'm not really smart, and had some like fairly major failings in my life, or like having to go back and humble myself and then realize, oh, okay, maybe I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, we did talk about that last episode with like how all of our characters are kind of egos, alter egos, or super egos of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Reese called it something different.
Yeah, every character you make is either a fraction, projection, or
Shadow.
Shadow, carbon copy, just
Okay.
an alternate expression of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because the character that we know best is ourselves.
Yep.
And even that, sometimes I feel like I don't have down.
Come on, somebody. Come on.
All
Somebody.
the time. All the time.
Preach it.
Yep. Who's next, number wise?
I think I was.
Okay.
I kind of feel bad for asking this question because we are so far in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a two-parter. One, is it flesh bag or flesh back?
No, it's flesh bag.
Okay.
Like a bag of flesh.
Okay. I have just been like.
I assume you're referring to Klaus's derogatory term for humans.
It is not derogatory.
Hey there, flesh bag.
But I've been kind of like mumbling the end because I don't actually know what you've been saying.
You've been doing that for 24 episodes.
100%.
Oh,
Or I avoid using the term. Secondly, where did you come up with this term?
Honestly, I do not remember. I heard it somewhere at some point.
Was it from Vampire Diaries as well?
I think so, maybe.
I think I've heard it from that show.
Yeah. So I just heard it somewhere at some point, and it just came to me in the spur of the moment, and I remembered Klaus. Yeah, Klaus as a character has a very huge disdain for humans, specifically.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even in one of the previous episodes, when we see the statue of Kazarash as a human, he walks up, spits at its feet.
Yep. And when you see the spectral image of Kazarash and that holographic illusion, you do say he is a flesh bag.
Yep. And so I wanted something for kind of to show that disdain or kind of that distaste towards humans.
Yeah.
And so I feel like calling them flesh bags. Klaus generally does not call people by their own name.
Yeah.
That is something that is kind of
Little lizard.
Little lizard. That is kind of something that I do myself. I tend to give people nicknames and then never call them by their actual names.
I'm scared of what mine could be.
I don't know. Maybe if I get to know you a little better, you'll get one.
I'll do that sometimes. I'll nickname people without asking them, and then never call them their real name again.
Yeah, with my wife, I was just like, we didn't really know each other yet. It was like the second time I've seen her in my entire life. I was walking past her. I stopped, looked at her, pointed at her, and said, "Can I call you Kat? I'm gonna call you Kat." And then I just walked away.
Wait, what's
Real
her name?
charmer right
Katrina.
there.
Wow.
Cool.
Yep.
Clearly you won her over.
It was definitely not my charm.
There you go.
Nice.
I would say something, but we're on air.
Yep. Okay.
I'm stamping that.
Nah, you should say something because he just had to stand.
Good old Stockholm syndrome.
Stop. Wow.
My word.
Speaking of moral compasses,
Anyway,
let us continue.
returning. What were? Yeah. your
Yeah,
names.
I was answering. I have one question that came to my mind from last episode.
4?
I think 4. Yeah.
Okay. We'll return back to episode 4 for a half minute.
Yeah. It was actually something very, I guess, kind of tying into all of Arc 1 in general.
Yeah, totally.
Reese,
Okay.
for you, did we seal off like an entire half of the dungeon? Did we ever explore behind that right door that Ima sealed off?
Well, I mean, Audra had the map to that.
Yep,
Do the
I'm
paths
sitting in
converge at
And-
any point?
They do not. They do not converge. So what happens is you guys sealed off. You sealed off one entrance. The two entrances, essentially, the entrance you went to just bounced you further back along the pathway.
Oh, okay.
So the entrance, they don't converge. One is just a shortcut through. Like you wouldn't have gone past the skeleton with the gold suit. You wouldn't have gone into the teleportation circle room. You wouldn't have. You would have jumped straight to. You would have jumped straight to a hallway next to the statue, if I'm not mistaken.
Next to the statue. Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
That darn,
I'd have to see the map again, but that's roughly.
that
Yeah,
darn
I'm looking
statue.
I think I took a picture of it.
Yeah.
So many things happen
Yeah,
there.
but so what you did by sealing off the door specifically that got sealed off was the one that would have allowed you to skip through part of the dungeon,
Okay.
which I thought was hilarious. I was like, sick. Now I get to do everything. I get to put
And
them
we
through
went through
every single
everything.
element, and
Yep.
you did. Well, because you needed to do something before you could take your long rest.
True.
Oof.
Very, very true. Speaking of that long rest,
Oh, there it is.
That's episode 7.
that is episode 7, so we're not going to talk about that right now.
Not yet.
I am being censored, everybody.
Yeah, so let's see.
No.
Yeah, so what it would have done if you guys had opened the you guys opened the right side of the statue. If you opened the left side of the statue, you would have gone straight to the room where Kazarash had his hologram.
Okay.
That's
okay.
it would have jump started you so that you would have gone straight there.
Interesting.
So you would have skipped one room. You missed a hidden room on your way over the first time and found it the second time through. And then there was a trap that you guys missed.
Oh, good.
What was the trap?
Knowing us, we would have fallen
you
into
didn't
it.
miss it. You would have skipped it had you gone through the other.
Oh, okay.
Oh, of course.
So, yeah. So that's what would have happened had you guys been able to get through that other room. It was just a little bit of a shortcut. Would have cut, a good 20, 30 minutes out of a session.
But why do that when you can have all the fun of running into every trap?
Every
Yeah.
single trap.
Well, you guys decided that you wanted to explore every single element of the dungeon. I made several ways to get through there. There were only a couple rooms that you had to go to in order to get through. And you went to every single room, so.
Yeah. I'm very sad
Next question?
now. I can have the next question. One for...
Wait, no, you already asked the next question.
Yeah, so
Were you
should
answering or did you ask?
I asked.
Okay.
Oh, so then it would...
Should we roll again then?
Do we just want to
Wait,
roll?
you asked about.
I asked
Episode
Reese
four.
about...
the rooms.
Yeah.
Yes.
So... Next would be, do we want to roll again or do we want to go back to the top?
We can go back to the top, I don't mind.
Okay. Audra,
Yeah.
this is about the mirrors.
Okay.
Okay.
You said your biggest fear was dying alone.
Mm-hmm.
Audra has just recently encountered a large number of things to be afraid of that she could have been afraid of instead of that. What still brought that to be the capital fear?
So in the backstory I created for Audra was her parents died when she was super young, and I think that affected her a lot. And then she was raised by her uncle, who then left in the mist. And so I think Audra spent a lot of time feeling alone or feeling like the odd man out, because already she has this like weird chameleon capability. And so I think the way that she has like internalized it, it's less about acceptance and more just like I don't want to die young, and I don't want to die by myself. Like I want to kind of be with people. So I think that was above, even though this is a new world and it's scary, she still got some of that arrogance left in her of like, I can overcome this, or I can like defeat this thing. But the
Right.
one thing you can't control is like if people are with you, and if you die, like death is something that's kind of out of your hands.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
No, she doesn't necessarily have a fear of being alone. She has a fear of dying alone? Is that correct? Or
yeah, or I guess like dying with no one caring about her.
right.
Yeah. So it's like hopefully at some point she'll find full acceptance and then die feeling loved. But like I think at this point she sees Ima as the closest thing as someone who's like loved and fully accepted her, but like he's still a construct.
Yeah, and so it's
So
like
it's kind
that,
of his
like,
duty.
Right. Yeah. So there's a level of like obligation for him to do it versus
Desensitization.
yeah. So yeah, like it'll be, if she ever runs into her uncle, like that'll be a very interesting reunion, because there's a whole lot of mixed up stuff
whole
in
lot of
there.
stuff.
Yeah.
If I may speak out of line and
Yeah,
ask a
absolutely.
question, because I have something very similar to this, and I was actually very curious, because especially listening to episodes 1 through 4, I did not realize how little you really had, like, backstory-wise for Adra.
Oh yeah.
And so, kind of shooting off of the question that Reese asked, I was curious, would you change your answer for Adra in the mirror? Because I love that episode because it was like the first episode where we got to kind of have glimpses at the psychology behind our characters, and I feel like I definitely had like a lot on Klaus already. I'm very curious if going back to that today, knowing Adra a little better, would you change your answer?
Good question. I don't think so.
Okay.
Only because, especially like where she was in that place and kind of I think being able to recognize what your greatest fear is also is tied to your maturity level.
Yeah.
And so for her, like that was her whole thing. Like even the bit of backstory I'd had before even that episode, like kind of one of her motivating factors, like she always wants to be close to people in power but not be the person in power. Yeah. So, but I don't think she's like worked out why that is or all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I don't think I would change it.
Okay, interesting. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious. Would you change your answer, Klaus?
Probably nowadays I would ask you on what level? On a superficial or on a deep level?
It always would have been deep.
It always would have been deep. Probably just... Klaus is like so complex in my mind that I'm not sure what it would, if I could boil it down to really one concept. But if anything, it would probably be loneliness or insignificance.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Especially just like thinking about his backstory, all the things that he went through in his past. Yeah, probably at one of those.
Yeah. And I think both of those can be wrapped up into one sort of, I mean, there's no singular word for that kind of concept, but both of those concepts put together, I know quite clearly how I would have narrated it.
And for him, kind of the amalgamation of that becomes a cage.
Yeah.
Again, tying this into his backstory, which our listeners may or may not know by then, but we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
I was the next question.
Yes.
I can't decide which one I want to ask first. I'm gonna ask Reese. What gave you the idea of having all of your characters say their worst fear? Curious because it allows listeners to come alongside these characters and maybe feel the emotions they're feeling while they're walking through every door with just experiencing and seeing their fear come before them.
Yeah, totally. So I built the entire thing. The entire dungeon, every single element of it, down to the smallest little detail, in one night.
Nice.
And I was finishing things around 2 a.m. It was like I was up super late. And I realized I had two very large rooms that lined up over a singular wall. And I've always loved the concept of like the Mirror of Erised from Harry Potter, but I wanted to see something that was the opposite of that and that at the same time. And so that's why, like, on the other side of the wall is the Mirror of Greatest Desire. And then on the side that you guys actually ended up looking in was the Mirror of Greatest Fear. And I wanted that because I also recognized we're in a dungeon crawl. Dungeon crawls do not have a lot of space for RP. The party doesn't talk much aside from strategizing survival in a situation like that. But I wanted a way for you guys to actually be able to get into your characters, to get into the meat of who they are, and sort of sink your teeth into solidifying that character and starting to understand them on a different level before we got out of the dungeon. I wanted something in there so that you guys could actually role play your characters and show us what you've made and what you've created and what you want them to be before we actually got to you interacting with large numbers of people.
And I feel like that room specifically accomplished that amazingly. That I remember finishing that episode, the recording of it, and all four of us were kind of just like, the atmosphere was really heavy. Like it was
Yeah.
like somebody put just anvils on top of us. I remember that, and I absolutely loved it. It was so amazing because it was the first time where we actually had an opportunity to really delve into the minds of our characters and understand, okay, what are we about?
Yep. And then be presented with your fear too. Like it wasn't just what is it? It's being presented to you as reality.
Yeah.
Because when you look in a mirror, the assumption is that everything you're seeing in that mirror is real. And it's just what's behind you. And so not just being not just like talking through it, but seeing it before you and believing that's real.
And seeing it as the place that you are currently in. And a
Precisely.
lot of our fears were real things that could have happened.
Yep.
Honestly, part of me was expecting that some of that would have happened,
Yeah.
like become reality from the mirror, like manifested itself.
Interesting.
One thing that I think was interesting, I remember you mentioning afterwards that you thought we would go into the mirror of greatest desire first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured you'd end up there first, or that you'd stay there. But you guys ended up with the mirror of greatest fears immediately. And so you were immediately afraid of all the others.
How would we have gotten there first when that room was first?
If you had gone through the other entrance. The one that was sealed off, that would have been the only way to get there first. And you guys happened to seal off the one.
But there was no more
Skipper.
door there. There was the room was empty with just the mirror there on the left side.
I'd need to see the map again, but I know there's a way you could have gotten there first.
Huh, interesting.
And it was split, right? Like we chose to go down.
Yeah,
Like
so
a
it was
left
the
and-
cellar. There was a path right from the cellar, if I remember right, and then the first one was on the left with the mirror on the right, and then the second room was further down the hallway with the mirror on the left. That's at least how I was
I don't believe so.
imagining.
No, if I remember correctly, can I see the
Yeah,
map?
yeah. It's W and X in there.
Yeah.
And then if you swipe one
yeah.
of the ways,
So if you actually, yeah. So you guys went into the mirror of, so if you guys went straight forward. And straight forward was the one that would get you to the mirror of greatest fear. But if you had gone forward and taken a left before you had gone through,
Okay.
you would have, like, there was forward, but in the wall on your left, there was an opening, and that opening was to the mirror of greatest desire.
Okay, then I
And
completely
so,
switched those two.
and so you could have gotten there. It actually would have been, if you had taken every single available path to you as soon as it was available, you would have gotten to the mirror of greatest desire.
I
first.
thought that we were doing that.
Yeah, no, you guys went all the way down to the mirror of greatest fear first.
Interesting. I mean, I'm happy about that.
I'm gonna double back on that question real quick.
Yeah.
How are each of your characters feeling about both seeing your worst fear? You ran to the mirror already, then you left, and then you came back to it. How are your characters feeling proceeding through that? Because you saw loneliness, and I don't remember what you saw, even though I listened to it the other day.
he saw
He
cages.
saw, well, no, he didn't see a cage. He saw himself trapped in the
In the
That's right.
dungeon by
in
himself.
the dungeon
what it
by
was.
himself, with nobody coming to look for him, and nobody there to help him.
That's right.
Yeah. How are y'all's characters feeling after like proceeding? 'Cause you kind of you felt vulnerable because you're looking in the mirror. Everyone should be able to see that,
Yeah.
but that's not the case. So you feel very exposed, but you're not.
Mhm.
How are your characters feeling at this point?
Would you like to go first?
Sure. Audra, in her super mature way, is just ignoring those feelings.
Mm.
So yeah, there was that level of, it was very much like, it's not real, it's fake, let's move on. And then
Mm-hmm.
commenting on, because I think Klaus was just crying, and so
Is
Audra's
this
just
what a
like,
king does?
yeah, and she was like, is that what a king does? Like, she's not gonna process that
Yeah,
right
you
now.
were looking for a comedic route out of like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me with everything.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in that similar vein, actually, no, you go ahead and answer that question because I don't want to draw us off topic.
Okay, that's fine. For Klaus, he hadn't. I'm still not fully sure of all the timelines of when things happened, but I am pretty sure that it had been a couple of months since Klaus had to, for the last time, confront those feelings. So that was his just heightened emotional response, but it wasn't anything new to him. let's just say that he had to deal with these things his entire life.
Yeah.
And so all that it did was just give him more determination towards his goal. So he saw that, he got up, he dusted himself off, and said what he thought would be the appropriate response to whatever, right? So he actually told them what his greatest desire would have been, and that's what he wanted everybody else to think that he saw in the mirror. Not showing them his vulnerability, but rather continuing in the way that he had presented himself before.
Right. And so you, instead of your presentation post that moment, as opposed to Audra was just trying to ignore it and pretend it didn't happen, you were like, I'm going to lie about what did happen and come up with an alternative reality that puts me in the high ground again.
Kind of, in a way of, he knows what his goal is, he knows what his past was, he knows his greatest fear. And so he wants to work towards a reality where that is no longer there, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of just that determination of, I don't care what I saw in that mirror, this is where I'm going.
So it was both an external and an internal decision. That was not just for convincing those outside of you, but also reminding yourself.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, now thinking way back to it, but yeah, that was kind of the goal of what I said.
Yeah, totally. But then returning to Audra, as anybody who has ever had to process emotions knows, if you refuse to process them, they come back and bite you in the butt eventually.
Oh, yeah.
What did that happen for Audra yet, or is she still not processing that?
So talking like where Audra is right now in episodes?
Just like jumping a little bit ahead, but just like across, like, did that ever happen?
I think a little bit. Like, I see kind of that year off and exploring did a lot for Audra to process stuff.
Okay.
I think part of the reason she's currently so upset with Klaus and blaming him is like that lack of processing and just trying to channel into other things.
Yeah.
And then I will say the conversation, I guess it's the next episode that's about to drop in this, like, where we are in April, but
we don't want to get too far ahead
episode
of that.
20.
Yeah.
But the conversation that she has with Vitoka is like, I think the beginning of her starting to process a lot of that.
So that did not the actual processing doesn't start happening until way down the line.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Like she's done bits of it, and I think it's like one of those things that if you leave a wound, it's gonna hurt to touch, and so like she starts to do it under her year off, and then is like, no, it's fine, and then she channels her, like, she's just super angry and aggressive all the time, thinking like, oh, this is just who I am, and so
Gotcha.
She does burst out a lot.
Even
just in some of the recent episodes that we recorded that won't even air for some time. I feel like part of it coming back to bite Adra in the butt was Aima's death. Because right? Because you kind of had to tug your tail underneath yourself and just leave. Because Aima was dead, Klaus was leaving. Yeah. And so you had to, I mean, I'm just imagining Adra traversing through that entire dungeon with that weight on her shoulders.
Especially I mean, coming back to it at later points in time.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's where in the immaturity bit, it's like she sees Aima's death as Klaus's fault, even though, like, clearly it was not.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
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 And even, I think all of this, I'm trying to remember, because we had like we talked after our last episode of Arc 1. So it's like, I can't remember what I said there and then what I've just been processing. But even like right after all of this happened, she was super angry with the leadership of the temple for a long time. And really like questioned.
Yeah, and there was definitely tension in the temple afterwards.
Oh yeah. Big time.
Yeah, which a lot of people felt, Kizak being one of them.
Yep.
Yeah. So process your emotions, folks.
Yes.
It's healthy.
Do you have a question, Prof. Mac?
Ooh.
Yeah, why don't we make this our last round of questions?
Okay.
Because otherwise we'll run out of time.
Then outro, then intro again.
Yeah.
Dope.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, that's great. I don't have as many questions as I should. These are for Reese. I'm gonna make it a two-parter
Okay.
with the now that I know confusion spell. What was the DC on that? Because Ima rolled a 16 and I rolled a 15, and it was not good enough.
Yeah, DC I think would have been 17 because I think I'm a rolled a 16, failed, and then rolled a 17 on his next save
Okay.
and succeeded. So it was a 17.
Okay. I didn't remember when you rolled the second time.
If you
I
check,
just was
it's-
like, what?
I gave you the map, and on the companion sheet with that has all the letters written out on what they do, I'm pretty sure that it's written out the DC. It may be altered. I altered
Oh, yep.
a lot
Nope.
of...
4th level DC 17.
Yep.
Literally right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And then I was curious, what were all of the possibilities that could have happened? So obviously, was it only shadows? But at one point, Ima wanted to punch Klaus, but he didn't do it.
Yeah, so I'll read the confusion spell right now.
Oh, it's an actual spell.
Yeah, confusion is a spell. It's a 4th level spell.
I'm learning so much right now.
Yeah, so
Same.
confusion. The spell assaults and twists the creature's mind, spawning delusions and provoking uncontrolled actions. Each creature in a 10-foot radius sphere, which isn't how that worked. It was just when you entered the room. Wisdom save, an affected creature, yada, yada, yada. Roll the d10 at the start of the turn to determine behavior. On a 1, creature use all its movement to move in a random direction. To determine the direction, roll a d8, assign a direction to each die face. The creature doesn't take an action on this turn. 2 to 6, the creature doesn't move or take actions on this turn, so that's what happened to Ima his first turn as he was stunned.
Yeah.
7 to 8, the creature uses its action to make a melee attack against a randomly determined creature within its reach,
That's
which is
what-
what that was.
Yeah.
Is the nearest creature within his reach was Klaus.
Got it.
Because you weren't even in the room,
Yeah.
but he couldn't move. Because it says if there's no creature within its reach, the creature does nothing this turn.
Okay.
So the inclination was still there, but he couldn't do anything. And then 9 and 10, you act normally, but the spell continues until you succeed the save. And so you rolled a 1 twice,
Yep.
which is
No,
why you
3 times I think.
it was a number of times, and so
Yeah.
you ended up bolting. And so that's part of what that was was just the spell doing what the spell does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I have one last question.
Okay.
First of all, now listening back to it, I am noticing so many hints that you were dropping to like Kazarash, who he really was,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of that.
Yes.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah, stuff that we've never talked about on air.
Yeah.
Because it's tied into like Reese's world and all of that.
There's so much in it.
There's so much in there. But yeah, in this intricate dungeon of statues and skeletons that come to life, of
Yes.
magic and runes that do different things, traps and so on, why was there a wine cellar?
Because okay, so this is Kazarash lore.
He was just like a wine connoisseur.
So Kazarash was a very powerful mage. Audra knows this because she's read many of his books. He was a wizard. He was a level 20 wizard who true polymorphed himself into a dragon. And he was never around anybody who would ever undo that. There was no one who would dispel that, and he never would lose those hit points because he built a temple to hide away in. However, he lived in that temple for quite some time as a human. And he enjoyed wine. He was a wine connoisseur. And so he had a massive cellar. Because that's just, he was a person. And
yeah, I honestly, I love that flavor because I was just like listening to everything and I was thinking back to all the rooms that we went through, and outside of that room and the room with food, everything else is just like death trap.
right. Well, and so that was part of it, is for a while he would he was a human just in nature. As he started to get near where a human would die, that's when he actually true polymorphed himself. So he masqueraded as the dragon using the shape change spell for quite some time, until as a human he began to run out of time to live, at which point he started setting up the dungeon to be a safe house, also a place where he could store any knowledge and prevent anybody who he did not consider to be deserving of that knowledge from getting in. And so that's why most of those rooms are trapped. But he was also human with compassion still, and so that's why one of the rooms was literally just a table full of food that would heal people and give them a long rest, and you guys ran away from that.
No, honestly, I'm glad that we ran away from it at first.
Yeah. It came
Um,
when we needed it.
That's
but
true.
The most, yeah.
That's true.
One last question to that, but just out of curiosity, and you don't have to answer. Are there any other beings like Kazadash still alive in your world?
Like ancient beings who have found a way to live?
Mm-hmm.
Heck yes.
Okay, good.
There are
awesome.
so many.
Awesome.
The supernatural lore of my world goes very, very deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm currently writing a book on my world that will hopefully be released by the time I graduate and can no longer keep being the DM of Moody&D. But the book will hopefully be done.
Awesome.
And that will contain a lot more details on that. But there are a series of beings. There are essentially three hierarchies of triads below the pantheon of deities.
Mm-hmm.
And in the three hierarchies, there's the rulers, which is a series of lawful, chaotic, and neutral good entities that rule over the land, sea, and sky.
Mm-hmm.
There is a series of chaotic, lawful, and neutral beings called the overseers. One who causes the advancement of civilization, one who causes the advancement of nature, and one who keeps the cosmos in balance. And then there is a series of beings who are lawful, chaotic, and neutral evil beings that actually rotate, that are similar beings to Kazadash, that were once humanoids and became something else because of their nature, because of something else they did. And so those three roles are actually rotating on a timeline based on what happens.
I love it. That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Moody&D Gone Rogue. You can listen to the rest of the Moody&D channel on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to follow the Moody&D Instagram at Moody_in_D. And while you are there, you should drop some questions in our Gone Rogue Questions highlight. Once again, I'm your host, Rachel Sanders. Hope to see you next time.
Peace.
Bye.
See you guys.